This is Morning Express, and it's time for us to get on to State of the Nation. And seems like our guests are running a little bit late. We'll try and see how far they are, then we can have our discussion. But just a quick reminder that you're welcome to participate in the conversation, and the Twitter handle is at KTN News, or you can also tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga. Do let me know what you know about the the mass voter registration exercise. Maybe there's certain questions that you may have. Possibly there are certain things that you may not understand. For instance, I know there are some who are asking, if I have already registered, do I need to re-register? There are also others who may want to know if I have registered in a certain part of the country and I want to vote in a different part of the country, do I need to re-register? Those are all the questions that we're going to be looking at right here as we go along. And I have some questions that had come through, which I'll see whether I can look at them as we get ourselves ready. And there was those who also, there was also the concerns from the opposition who kept saying that the BVR kits are not enough. They had actually suggested a radical move to see whether the elections would, or rather the registration would be postponed and done at a later date. But this suggestion, of course, was not taken into account, and the voter registration did begin. We also do know that Isaac Hassan mentioned that there was funding that came through and the BVR kits were going to be doubled. The concern from the opposition was as to whether the BVR kits had been given more to one side of the government, or rather they were favoring the government as opposed to the opposition, and those were their concerns. Now, this morning, we're expecting guests who may be running a little bit late, but I'll start with the guests that we already have in studio, and I'll start first of all with my extreme left, the Deputy CEO rather, for IEBC, and that is Betty Nyabuto. Thank you for coming and glad to have you. Morning. And then we have the MP for Kiharu, Irungu Kangata. Great to have you too.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Joining us as we go along with the show, we have Javas Bigambo, who is a governance specialist, and also Noah Akala, who is the Deputy Director for campaign for ODM, but they will join us as we go on with the show. Let me come to you, Betty, and first of all, ask how we are doing. We know the voter exercise, mass voter registration exercise began on Monday and is continuing for a month. How are we doing so far?
Well, I'm glad to be in this show and to state that, yes, indeed, we kicked off on Monday. And the voter registration exercise is going on very well. There's very good response. As we know, it's actually ward-based. And Wananchi are showing up at their respective registration centers, and registration is actually taking place.
Okay.
Yes, so we
Any
kicked off countrywide.
Any challenges so far?
Yeah, well, I think the first day there was a challenge of people not quite knowing where these centers are within the ward. And the mitigation measure we've taken here is to ensure that people then know how this kit is going to move within the ward. For example, today it's at this station, and it will be based here for a week. And the week after, it will move to a different station within the ward. So the rotational movement of this kit within the ward is what Wananchi expect to have.
Okay.
And therefore, we're using various sensitization programs through the sub-county level and local administration, and including even media houses like yourself.
Okay.
Will be able to devolve and inform you about this movement of the kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Irungu, we do know that one of the, politics is about numbers. And I'm sure that the government and like yourself, a member of parliament, is doing all you can to ensure that people within the constituencies register. Do you feel there is enough information and knowledge on the electorate from IEBC regarding the voter registration and how important it is for them to register?
No, not really. I think IEBC has not been working very well presently in terms of telling members of public, one, that the exercise has kicked on, two, where the exercise is taking place. Because, for instance, on Monday and Tuesday I was in Kiharu constituency, and I noted there was a lot of people not knowing where they can go and register. If I were them, what they should do, one, they should do what we call civic education via vernacular radio stations. They clearly indicate and say, tomorrow this kit will be in a certain primary school, so you can go there. But for now, it's not clear. You can't tell where that kit is presently. And to me, that is wrong, because, of course, without that kind of information, people cannot know where they should go.
How would you have rather they would have communicated that information?
One, through churches. Two, going to vernacular radio stations, clearly indicating the table of how that thing is going to be taken around. For instance, they should be saying in a radio station, on this and this date we shall be in this and this primary school, so that people can go on that place and register.
Okay.
But for now, it is not clear. It's like they're operating on some form of rumor-mongering. So probably they need to ensure the information is reaching Mwananchi in a more better manner. Okay. And of course, thirdly, they can even think about road shows. Maybe they can have one vehicle going around with some form of making announcements.
Okay, I do know that there was already, there's some road shows, in fact, in partnership with Standard Group, which had already begun. But Betty, some of those concerns, maybe the information is not out there as much as we may think that people know. Is the information out there?
Yes, I think one of the things I want to first and foremost correct Mheshimiwa here is, you see, if we go out to the public using very adverse comments like rumor mongering, then now that already dents, it dents this process. So what we need to do is to work in a collaborative way, Mheshimiwa, work together in sensitizing people. In fact, we're actually riding on their political goodwill to amass voters within their constituencies. They are the ones to support the commission in sensitizing voters to turn out in large numbers. Indeed, I do agree with him that we need to up our sensitization through media programs, and we do actually have various vernacular stations where we are appearing and informing Wananchi in vernacular language that this is where the kit will be for this week, and basically the kit movement schedule. So this is an exercise that cannot be left to the commission alone. Just like we say, war cannot be left to the generals alone.
Right.
We all must come together on board. Church functions, fundraisings perhaps, barazas, funerals, sorry to say, you know, weddings. So we expect people to come out in large numbers and, you know, register. And therefore we expect to use such platforms. Of course, issues like the roadshow, like he said, are critical forums. You know, these are good platforms where you can, which you can use to sensitize people. We did have a roadshow courtesy of the Standard Media Group, and we thank you so very much. But again, we must be alive to the fact that a roadshow is not a cheap exercise. And this is an exercise we are carrying out using very paltry funds, you know, 500 million. And indeed, yes, we had additional funding from the donor community, but that again can only go so far. So this is an issue which is of national interest. We'll call upon Wananchi, even at family units. If you have a brother, a sister, a relative who has not registered, we are telling you, please turn out and let them register. So right, this cannot be left to the commission alone.
In regards to working as a team, sometimes we have this notion where you feel you've got government on one side, we have IEBC on the other, you have opposition on the other. Why not work as a team to ensure that this is done? Because it is important for you as a member of parliament to have everybody registered.
Well, we do have some legal constraints. You know, IEBC is supposed to be an independent
commission. An independent body. So
therefore, there is a certain boundary which exists between us and them. Because if we go directly and start doing some collaborative activities, people will say now IEBC is in the pocket of the current politicians who are holding various offices. Be that as it may, we do have other forms of collaboration. Of course, me as a politician, it is to my own interest that members of public register, so that I have as many people as possible participating in this process. So therefore, we have gone to a bigger extent to ensure people come and register. We mobilize people. And by the way, provincial administration has been doing a very good job towards telling people to register. Also, the church, the religious people have been doing a good job. Also, we politicians, wherever we have public forum, we ensure that we tell the public that they should go and register. However, we do not have a good flow of information. Like now myself, I do not know where those kids are presently in Kiharu. It would have been good.
Constituency.
Yes, and I would imagine that is happening in each and every constituency. So therefore, I would propose to the IEBC, they give us the schedule or the movement of those kids, so that when we have that schedule, we can be able to disseminate that information to members of public in a more coherent manner. But for now, we are groping in darkness. The information is not clear to us elected leaders. Okay. And also even the provincial administration, when I hear them talking in various forums, I haven't heard them giving a very clear and detailed manner of how those kits are moving. And probably there is an issue. If I were them, they should be able to synergize well with other leaders, with other systems which exist of disseminating information kule kwa mashinani.
Okay, Betty, I saw you nodding your head when you was talking about the partnership between, say, politicians and IEBC not being possible. Are you saying it is possible for them to work
obviously
together?
that is not the position. That's not correct. This is an institution that runs elections, and people who are either aspiring or intending to aspire obviously are keen to know how does this commission work. I must say that just a short shift here is that just before we kicked off this mass voter registration, we indeed had various stakeholder forums where we actually began with political parties. That was basically our first stakeholder forum. We had a very elaborate meeting with them. They sent their representatives and we were able to discuss this issue of mass voter registration. We've met state and non-state actors, we've met civil society organizations, we've met even the private sector. And therefore, this is not an issue. When we say the commission is independent, it doesn't mean that we are working alone, but it means that we also have stakeholders. This is a collaborative exercise. So when, for example, a politician goes out to urge voters to turn out in large numbers, they're not citing the commission, but they're citing the constitutional rights of that voter in first registering and exercising their right to vote and first and foremost be registered. So it is not only their duty, but also the duty of many other stakeholders, including the media. So when you work with us like you've invited here, it doesn't mean that you've actually infringed on our independence. But you see, through this forum, we are able to collaborate and sensitize wananchi. So I also want to touch on the issue of the kit movement, just to bring it to closure. We are going to devolve that information and even give political parties so they can have it and know the rotational movement of that kit within the ward.
Okay.
So that information will be available even on our website at the constituency level. And the law behoves of us that when you're moving from one center to another, you post a notice stating that I'm now moving from center A and I'll be at center B from this week to this week. So we are basically going to be in full compliance.
One might argue and say, why wasn't that information already given even prior to the exercise beginning?
Yes.
Because one would imagine by now, for me to prepare, I mean, we can't assume that once the kit is there, I'll be available. I may not even be in town. But if I have the information prior, then I'm able to plan.
One of the things that we must take into cognizance is the issue of the rotation of the kits was basically informed by even the preparations. We did not know we were going to get this additional funding. And you see now with that additional funding, it means additional voter registration assistance. So, and this came pretty much late. You remember last week is when the commission announced to the country, we now have additional funding to now supplement what we already had from government. And therefore the mapping in terms of how we are going to have some of these registration officers take this route within our ward and others, this route within the ward came in pretty much late. And therefore we ask wananchi to bear with the commission on that, but we are working very hard indeed. We actually already have the schedules as we speak right now, and we'll be devolving them to the various units within the wards.
Okay. Yes. Mheshimiwa Irongo, one of the constraints that the IEBC has faced is funding, and that lies with you and your colleagues.